Hey, AEW fans, this is Marc Maron, and this is my talk with Chris Jericho on my podcast, WTF. I went to my first live wrestling event on January 11th, the AEW Dynamite taping at the Kia Forum in Los Angeles. And the day before, Chris came over to talk with me and my producer, Brendan, about wrestling. Enjoy. So, as Brendan told you, I started in a wrestling-themed TV show. But,
I loved it. Glow.
Oh, thanks.
Great.
Yeah. But like my character didn't need to know about wrestling. And I've continued that. I'm like, I was in the wrestling world for a while. And certainly, I've interviewed a few wrestlers. I learn more as we go along. But this is really the first time tomorrow that I'm going to
go to the show.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, you guys all converge on this place together, or you meet here? Like, how do you travel as wrestlers?
Okay, so it's a weekly show every Wednesday, all across the country. Right. So usually everyone flies in like on a Tuesday night, and then we do the show on Wednesday, and people leave on Thursday.
So you just go have your lives, and this is your job.
You do, and this week was different though, because we had last Wednesday was Seattle.
Yeah.
Then we went to Portland on Friday.
Right.
And then we have Wednesday here in LA. So a lot of people just stayed out here.
Sure. Well, there's stuff to do here.
Well, yeah, and rather than traveling back and forth, that's a long flight to go back and forth.
And how were the shows on the last week?
Well, they were great.
Portland.
So our first time in Seattle.
Yeah.
First time in Portland, and this will be our second time in LA with this company tomorrow. So it's great when you go to a new city because the people have never seen you before.
Yeah.
So they're always crazier. They're always loud and they usually sell the most tickets in a market the first time you go. And then you have to, if you put on a great show, then people will come back. Like in LA, we sold out the first show. We didn't sell it tomorrow night, but there's still going to be over 10,000 sold. So that's a great night.
But you don't worry about people not coming back? I mean, what is it?
Sometimes. But we go to certain markets where you're just there like every 3 or 4 months, and then you start to burn it out.
Oh.
So you got to get away from it for a while.
Yeah. Well, why? Because it's the same crew. You guys are doing different matches. And everything.
It is, but it's like anything else. You can't, if you're a rock and roll band, AC/DC, you can't go to, LA every month or for a while. I'll skip this
it's
week.
Like, think about your tours too.
Yeah.
Right,
like
your comedies.
You have noticed, like, you'll go to a place, and then if you go back, you're like, oh, I can't do the same stuff. I can't.
Well, that's it. Yeah. But but I have to write a whole new act. It would seem that the stories or the matches or this, the evolution of characters within the.
I think the best way is to go to a market like twice a year. Unless it's in New York or in LA, then maybe 3 times a year. That's good. That's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Because to play the big venues like this, that's, like I said, that's a good way to keep the product fresh. And plus, you're always doing new matches and newer. Because even if you're not in the same city, our show is every Wednesday night live.
Right.
So you have to hook people with the storylines, much like Glow.
Yeah.
What happens this week leads to next week, leads to the week after that, drama, all that sort of thing.
So how long have you been in it now?
32 years.
And you seem well.
I feel well, but I lost my fucking mind 15 years or 20 years ago. But 32 years in the biz.
And physically, you can still take it. I just watched a match from a couple weeks ago. When was that? From New Jersey.
Yeah, we watched Full Gear this morning. And so we watched your 4-way.
The 4-way, gotcha. Yeah. Let's see. About 10 years ago, I started doing yoga.
Really?
That helped out a lot.
Did it?
It really did. I don't do it now, but that was kind of the gap that bridged for me to continue to do this. Because before that, it's a lot of your weightlifting and how much you bench. And
so no stretching? You weren't stretching
I wasn't
properly?
stretching. Yeah, now I don't really weightlift anymore. I do a lot of kickboxing now.
Okay.
A lot of cardio stuff. I really watch my diet.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of weight earlier this year, about 30 pounds. So that kind of helped a bit as well. So as you get older, you have to just morph your training and how you live,
Yeah, I'm trying to do it myself.
Yeah.
So you stopped lifting just because it was counterproductive?
I guess. Like I said, when I had a really bad back issue that yoga helped me through. And yoga was a really physical transformation just from doing that.
You feel your core lock in.
Your core locks in, even the different muscles that you use and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of kind of isometrics in this yoga, which is, you're basically lifting weights without lifting weights, just slowly moving your arms back and forth, which gives you a pump, that sort of stuff. So that kind of took me away from the weight training. I realized I'm really hurting my joints now. My shoulders are kind of fucked. My knees are kind of fucked. But if I don't lift weights, I don't put extra strain on them, so that helps.
Yeah,
you know.
So I'm finding the joint thing is happening.
Yes, as you get older, it's a thing.
Like I'm 59, and it just started like a year or so. Like in the last year, the joints.
And for me, the stretching of the yoga really helped with all of that.
Yeah,
stuff.
I just started doing it again.
Yeah,
it's the balance is a bitch.
Right.
Yeah,
fall one leg up, one leg behind, falling all the time.
It's embarrassing.
But
sometimes.
when I never stretched, and I couldn't even bend over and touch my toes. And like as a pro athlete, why am I not doing this?
You got to stretch.
So so it really made a difference. Yeah.
So when you started, where were you?
So I started in. I'm from Winnipeg, Canada.
You're Canadian?
I'm Canadian. Yeah.
You lucky fuck.
Yeah.
You can just leave.
I can just leave whenever the fuck I want.
Oh, it's the best.
I can go on both sides of the border.
But Winnipeg, you want to get out of. Though.
Well, it was freezing up there. Yeah. So I was in Winnipeg. I moved to Calgary. That's where I trained with.
Calgary, another not great place. I love Canada, but Winnipeg it's just blown out tundra.
Yeah.
And Calgary is like a bunch of yahoos.
Well, yeah, the Cowboys. The Cowboys are all there. So that's where I trained though, and I trained with it's called the Hart Brothers, and the Harts in Calgary. Bret Hart, you're wearing an Owen Hart shirt. They were
really?
They were kind of
They're Canadians
they're
too?
Canadians.
Yeah.
They're from Calgary. So I trained with that family, the Hart Brothers.
Well, we were kind of talking about before about territories, like that this guy Stu Hart was the patriarch of this family, and he ran the Northern Territory there that was in Canada. Basically.
So before Vince started the WWF. Which existed, but before he took it national, there was territories. So you'd have a Calgary territory, Dallas, there'd be an LA territory. So guys would just go around the country, stay in this territory for a year or two.
But were there gigs within each territory? Is that how it worked?
They had their own little running company where you do 6 shows a week, traveling all around the area.
In the territory.
This is what I was talking about with Jerry Lawler's Memphis territory.
Right. Exactly. So you would get a little bit stale, and then you'd move to the next territory. So it was a very nomadic lifestyle back in those days.
How long would it take to get stale?
It depends on how hot you were and how you got your character over. Because wrestling is all character. The moves are important and the matches are exciting, but you have to connect with the audience. It's just like comedy or acting or anything, you have to connect with the audience. If you can do that to a high level, the audience will pay to see you and they'll be interested in what you're doing.
And that's a combination of things in terms of character,
knowing how to play
shtick,
charisma. Stories have a lot to do with it. The stories that we're telling, because that's the number one thing of wrestling. It's storytelling. Yeah, that's why people are. And you'll see tomorrow night. There's going to be some crazy matches. That the athleticism is through the roof. Yeah, but the stories behind them are the most important thing.
Yeah, he'll have to fill me in on.
You have to fill. Yeah.
Well, but it's interesting. We watched some matches cold, right? We were watching this pay-per-view without really a build to it, and the very simple nature of some of the setups, like Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, for instance, is like that's a story as old as wrestling, where you have partners who break up,
right?
And we were within maybe 5 minutes of it, and you were like, oh wow, it clicked in. Explain what you meant by that. Like you were
just where the emotions of engagement transcend the artifice of the thing.
Right. Sure.
You just you bypass like this isn't real. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing.
Well, it's like when you watch a movie or watch a TV show, it's not real.
Right.
But it's the story that envelops you and grows.
Right. Well, before watching it with Brendan, it wasn't that I judged it because I talked to a lot of wrestlers. I understand that it's an art and that it's a performative art.
Right.
But I didn't really believe that I'd necessarily get past the knowing that it's not really about whether it has to be convincing.
Sure, it has to be good.
Yeah, but that there's an orchestration of moves. Yeah. But it very quickly just became I became invested in the characters.
Well, and you'll see, for example, tomorrow night, my gang, the Jericho Appreciation Society.
Yeah,
I had a match against this up and coming guy, Ricky Starks, who's getting really popular with the crowd. He beat me, and then after he beat me, my gang kicked the shit out of him and threw him through a table and really kicked his ass, right?
Oh, yeah.
So tomorrow night, we're going to come out to gloat about how great we are.
So you guys are the heels?
We're the heels.
Yeah.
And then Ricky will come out and Action Andretti will come out and there'll be a little confrontation, which will lead to the next week's storyline. So some weeks you wrestle.
Yeah.
Some weeks you do the storytelling.
Well, what was interesting to me, too, was I said to Brendan when Luchasaurus, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just, just pulled the table out from under the ring, and I'm like, oh, so no one even gives a shit if it's organic anymore? You need a table for the bit.
They're all under the ring.
I know, but like I said, at some point it must have seemed. It was a little more authentic that the tables were outside the ring. People were sitting at them at some point in time.
Well, yeah, maybe, but the tables are that's a trope.
Now
Tables
it's
are
a thing.
always
That's
under
what
the
I
ring.
mean.
Yeah.
I know it's a trope, but like at some point it had to become a trope somehow.
Somehow, yeah. That would be a good question. When did the first table get pulled from underneath the ring? I'm curious for that myself.
Well, I assume it was there for the announcers, and they did a bit on.
You know what I bet?
Yeah,
I actually bet it was because they started doing those TLC matches where you would have all this plunder in all parts, and they would get used, right? So a guy would go through table, and then you'd have auxiliary tables, ladders,
Yeah,
chairs,
I think it was
and
probably
everything.
earlier than that, maybe ECW or something.
Oh,
like that.
sure.
Like you said,
Well,
they need some extra tables,
yes,
so they'll
right.
break the ones at ringside.
Right.
Then they'll go under the ring, which it's a magical place under the ring.
Yeah.
Leprechauns live under there, apparently.
Doink the
Chairs,
Clown.
tables,
Yeah.
clowns live under there. Yeah, so if you go under there, it's a trip, man.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that under the ring was a thing.
Yeah,
There's
it's a party under there.
There's a hilarious. It might have been the first Hell in the Cell, I think, the Shawn Michaels Undertaker Hell in the Cell, where the whole thing was going to be nobody can get in. It's a closed cell.
Yeah,
We're
no
not
one
even
can get out.
And so they had, before the match, I think Sergeant Slaughter was playing the commissioner role at that time, and he came by with a flashlight, and he lifted up the ring apron, and you waved a flashlight in the general vicinity of under the ring. No one under there. Like, it's just for everyone to establish, there's nobody under there tonight.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, there's a little bit of a suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
As
Well, of
real
course.
as wrestling can be, there's also a huge comedic, ridiculous, preposterous side to it as well.
Yeah.
Which is something I've always been attracted to also.
Yeah.
I can go have the 5-star match, and I can also do a song and dance routine and sing Me and My Shadow on the show, which
Right.
we did last year, a couple years ago as well.
Yeah.
All of that stuff to me is wrestling. Wrestling is all things to all people to me.
So you started doing it. How old were you?
I was 19.
Yeah, and then when did you sort of get into the American territories?
Well, so at the time, this is 1990.
Yeah.
So at the time, like the biggest, the guys were all huge. Hulk Hogan and that type. It was 6'8", 300 pounds.
That's when he was a kid.
And I was 5'11", 195, 200 pounds. So I always knew I wouldn't be the biggest guy on the show.
Yeah.
But I could have the biggest character and the most charisma, and the
Yeah.
biggest personality. And that's what I did in Canada. But then where I really started getting my break was overseas in Japan,
Yeah.
and in Mexico, because they didn't care as much about size.
Yeah.
They cared about match quality. They cared about charisma, connecting with the crowd, connecting with the audience.
How's it different though over there? Like in Japan, what are the expectations?
Japan is a little bit more hard hitting.
Yeah?
A little bit less of the interviews and the American.
They just like the physicality.
It's the physicality of it, the art form of it.
Yeah.
Right? Mexico was the other side. Way much more cartoon character. For kids, everyone's wearing the mask, the lucha libre
Yeah.
thing. So America's kind of a combination of the two. Japan's much more hard hitting. Mexico's much more of the cartoon
It's
side.
like it's sort of broad. They because I noticed that a little bit with some of those luchadors that we watched today.
Yeah.
With that you were fighting with,
Lucha
right?
Brothers.
The Lucha Brothers.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is I became a big star in Japan as a bad guy and a big star in Mexico as almost a teen heartthrob. Like I was on the
Oh,
cover
yeah?
of the teen magazines
Oh,
and
yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
So by the time I got to the States, which is your question, it was probably 96. So I was 6 years in, but I'd already become a pretty big star in other countries before I came and became a star in the States.
So you're paying some dues. Did you do those gigs that like comics do, like hell gigs?
All of them. I did a kid's birthday party once for a hot dog and an orange juice.
Really?
That's my best payoff. Yeah, but yeah, you do all those ones. I mean, I remember in Mexico, some of the places we worked were so shitty. I remember a guy taking a shower out of the back of a toilet.
Yeah.
and he's like, "No, it's okay. It's clean water." I'm like, "Dude, it's from a toilet. Like, I don't care how clean it is. A toilet is a toilet."
So, but they always had a ring.
They always had a ring. Sometimes there were boxing rings, which are hard like this table.
Right.
You're not doing any, we call them bumps, and not
Yeah.
bumps of cocaine. Bumps are the falls
Yeah.
that you take in wrestling.
Yeah.
You're not taking a lot of bumps in a boxing ring because it's just too hard. So you would just go out there and just pantomime and just fuck around because it's not on TV and there's 50 drunks in the crowd. And
Yeah.
just get the hell out of there and get your 200 pesos and go home.
Was there like ever nights where there was like 10 people? And
Oh, yeah. The smallest crowd I think I wrestled was in Rimbey, Alberta, 7 people.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Listen, I could wrestle in a stadium tomorrow in front of 70,000 people and be less nervous than wrestling in front of 7 people.
Yeah, it's you got to hold 7 people,
and you can see it. You see each person in the crowd, but you actually get to know these people. I'm sure you've done the same gigs. Like, oh, the guy with the dark hair is getting bored. I better like do something.
And then there's the war against embarrassment.
Yeah.
Because when there's 7 people there, it's already a little sad.
It's terrible, and the people that are there are embarrassed.
Yeah, everyone's
it's like
embarrassed.
we made the wrong decision to come to the wrestling tonight.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Same with the band. Sometimes you play, it's like, oh fuck, not anymore, thankfully. But we played the gigs with 7 people with the band too. That sucks also.
I never understood it. Like, but you'd go do the show, but when I'd get there, I'd be like, what? Do you want to go? Do you want to just leave?
Yeah.
You can go.
Yeah. I feel bad for you. You're right. It's so embarrassing.
It's a little weird, but they always stay, dude.
They do. And then once again, that's the real secret. That's paying your dues. If you can get a crowd of 7 interested in what you're doing, that's a hell of a talent to be able to have.
Well, they don't want to hurt your feelings. So they're going to say, if you walk a crowd of 7, even 2 of them, that's got to be worse.
Yes.
Because you don't know if you walk anybody when there's 20,000 people in there.
And that was the thing tee during the pandemic. We had to wrestle in front of no people because we have our weekly TV show. It's like, listen, pandemic or not, you got to put on a show.
Yeah.
And I remember a lot of the people like, I feel bad for the young guys with, there's no crowds. I was like, fuck the young guys. They feel bad for me.
Yeah.
You know how long it's been since I wrestled in front of no people? Like, it's been 30 years. It's really hard to wrestle in front of no people.
Yeah. I mean, you need the crowd that badly?
You don't.
Well, I mean, not need, but I mean, you pace yourself with the crowd.
You a lot of times, at least for me, with the experience that I have, is I base my match around the crowd that we have. I know if, like, for example, last week in Seattle with Ricky Starks, I knew the Seattle crowd was going to be crazy. Mm-hmm. I might have put together a different style match if we were in, Washington, D.C., where the crowd is not as crazy. Yeah. Or Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Well, what would you do? What you make
just
them
more
crazier?
Just more of the drama.
I noticed, and I don't notice this from you a lot, you flipped off the crowd. You walked around, like you just do double birds, and it was.
They always react to that.
They were frenzied. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was.
But there's more drama in a match like that where you have the crowd that hot.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if I put them in the submission hold, I know I can hold it for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And the crowd will be excited about it and cheering and hoping that he gets out and we can mess with it. Like, you just know. And that just so yes, you do use the crowd,
of course,
to base your performance on.
The flow, The
flow.
So you don't make the transitions as quickly, or like if you can milk a crowd.
Oh, I will milk them till the cows come home.
So you can just keep doing the different parts of the story. Right?
I did a match in Chicago right before Thanksgiving with Ishii. And he's a Japanese guy, doesn't speak English. But he's really hard hitting. And I said, we're gonna chop each other, like slap each other in the chest.
Yeah.
For like 5 minutes straight. Let's just see what happens. And dude, our chests were blood. My eye was actually bleeding, my black and blue. And for 5 minutes, this crowd was going nuts. And then they go down a bit. And I said, just keep going. It's like a comedy. Repetition always gets a laugh.
Sure.
Wrestling repetition will always. And they came back up. And they're just going bananas for this chop fight.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is great. We don't have to do anything. Just chop each other for 5 minutes, hit you with the finish, and the match is done. It was awesome.
We were just talking about when you were watching Jungle Boy and he had gigged and he was bloody. And sometimes guys, the whole face is bloody covered.
Yeah.
Ric Flair was very popular doing that. And the legendary commentator Gordon Soley, he would call it the Crimson Mask.
Yes,
He's wearing the Crimson Mask.
Yeah.
And Chris had literally, I'd never seen a wrestler
crimson chest.
had the crimson chest. His fucking whole chest was bleeding, like just from chops.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, but the drama of it worked because the crowd was so hot.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff plays in. You know this because you're a live performer too. There is a trick and a way to play a live crowd.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, you'll always have the best shows. And it takes a while to learn, but once you got it, you can do it every night.
So when you were in the 4 people, what do you call that?
Four-way.
The four-way match?
The 4-way, all you guys just know those moves in terms of synchronicity and movement, even when there's 2-on-1. You just know those instinctively and you just call them and you know what to go to?
Yeah, you talk about it beforehand.
Oh, you do?
Especially for a match like that because there's 4 different players. And there's always something going on.
Yeah.
But if you remember that match, the biggest reaction of the whole match is when my guy Sammy and I were when he turned on me.
Yeah.
That there, when I spun him around, and that drama was
after you hugged him and then he went at you?
Yeah, and then because we made a deal like, you're not gonna go after me, you're gonna help me win.
Yeah.
Right, Sammy? And he's like, all right.
Yeah.
That was the story we told going into it. So that when I finally hit him with a move, didn't care a thing about it, and then he was kind of like, well, this is fucking shitty. So then he turns on me, and that moment was so dramatic that people went nuts for it. And I'm like, that's the best. That's wrestling.
Right.
That's when it works.
Like someone like Brendan knows everything that can happen, but you don't know what will happen all the time.
I think the way I put it to you is
Exactly.
that I come into every match hoping that they will make the right dramatic choices in that scenario. Right. And then and I know that they're professionals, so especially like you're in a national promotion like this, they're not going to half-ass this. They're going to do the full match. It's going to be good no matter what. They're good performance.
Yeah.
But like the perfect example is the main event of that pay-per-view. Like going into that pay-per-view, following the story of MJF and Moxley and Regal, like me and my friend who went to that event in Jersey, we thought, well, he's got to cheat and he's got to be helped by Regal. That's the story. And I would have gone. I would have had a great time in any other way watching those matches. It was a great night, really well done show. But that was the key because I was like, they hit the best emotional note that you could hit. Is that it was all laid out for weeks if you got to that point.
Yeah.
Well, we did something just a few weeks ago. I saw this kid back in October. Good-looking kid, pretty agile, and then I said, well, let's do a promo, an interview with him.
Yeah.
He was a good talker.
Yeah.
I said, let's hire him, but just keep him at home. I got an idea. Action end ready. Mm-hmm. 2 or 3 weeks ago, I lose my title, and I'm going to have a tune-up match against some jobber, and I'm going to get back on track and go back after this title again. Yeah. So this kid comes out, and we have a match, and I'm treating him like a jobber, like a squash match. I'm just throwing him around, beating him up. He gets really no offense. And people are chanting, let's go, jobber. Like they're behind it. They're laughing along. Yeah. Hit him with my finish. 1, 2, he kicks out.
Yeah.
And that moment there, people were like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then the buzz starts going, what's going to happen now? We've never even seen this guy on TV ever.
Yeah.
And then we continue forward, and then suddenly he gets me, and he gets me again. He gets out of this, he gets out of that. Bam, boom, boom. Hits me with a move. 1, 2, 3. He wins. The crowd goes fucking crazy. He's running around, slapping hands. He's jumping up and down. People are going nuts. It's one of the greatest moments that we've had maybe in AEW history. Yeah. Because no one knew this guy, and by the end, we had made a new star. Yeah. It doesn't hurt me to lose. Yeah. But we made this guy. And that's what it's about. It's about making stars and about making people react, and nobody would have guessed that he was going to win.
Well, especially there's watching it week to week, you pick up certain cues, and that these are kind of things I have picked up since I was a kid. That if you introduce a guy, Chris Jericho, for instance, will be in action. No name of an opponent or whatever. That's going to be a squash match. That's a jobber. Yeah. I don't even know if this was on purpose. They might have been, it might not have been. But when he was introduced, they put the graphic was messed up. It said your name,
my name, yeah.
And it just looks like they don't give a shit about this guy because he's just going to lose.
And that was a mistake, but it was a happy accident. It's perfect. Yeah.
Amazing. And there have been matches where a guy will get a little shine on a big star. I'm thinking of Triple H and Taka Michinoku.
Right, yeah.
And that it had that formula where you could plausibly see that this guy was going to get an upset victory, but in your head, you knew there's no chance, right? So you're just waiting to when the finish actually happens. And the amazing thing with this match was that Chris has conceivably 3 finishers, right? So he hits the finish that he mentioned, and it was 1-2 kick out, okay? He still got 2 more in the chamber. Yeah. And each time this guy gets some shine, gets ready to build, then I forget, he went for a move where maybe it was his moonsault, he missed, and he gets up, and Chris is going like this. Like he's going to hit him with the spinning elbow, right? Yeah. And the crowd immediately is booing the shit out of the match because they're like, now we know the end, right? This is it. Now I can boo Chris because he's going to win and he's the heel. And it fucked up. He didn't get the
kid
move.
Gets out of it again.
And then now it's all over. You're ripping up the crowd again. It's like, this is what I've been trying to let you in on my enjoyment of this as to why I like it so much. And it's exactly this.
But once again, like we said, it's the story that we're telling. Like you called it as a fan watching. There's no way this guy is going to win.
Yeah.
But what if he did?
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's like, this guy could win, but he still won't.
Right.
Like, we know what's going to happen. Jericho's going to make him look great, and then the next week we've got a new guy.
Yeah.
But then he gets out of this move. Okay, well, this is what he got out of that move. And then he hit, and then he wins. It's like that drama and that reaction. That's what wrestling is for me.
Yeah.
It gives a shit about the fucking moves. It's creating the story to get people to go, this is great.
Yeah,
like the best movies.
Yeah.
The best TV shows, whatever it may be.
But now this guy's got to do the job, right?
Well, the thing is, now, and everyone always like, what's the follow-up?
Yeah.
You just put this guy over, because everyone's a know-it-all now, too,
Yeah,
Mark.
right.
They go on fucking Twitter, and they I know what the follow-up is the next week. He comes out and rescues another guy.
Yeah.
So then I do this thing where I throw fireballs in guys' faces. So I fucking throw a fireball in his face. Okay, you got the big win over Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
Quit while you're ahead. Go home. Never come back.
Yeah.
So the guy that I beat up, that he came to make the save for, Ricky Starks, we have this match last week.
Yeah.
And once again, Ricky's probably not going to win, but he's a bigger star, but he beats me.
Yeah.
Clean. He wins. So then my guys come to beat him up. Who comes down to fucking save the day? The guy who I threw the fireball in a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now he's back again, but we fuck him up too.
Yeah.
So now the storyline is these two guys, Ricky Starks and Action Andretti, are like these kind of two partners that are thrown together just by the fact that my guys beat them both up.
Right.
So now they create an alliance. This guy, Ricky's getting higher up the food chain. Action's getting higher up the food chain. My guys are getting some great shit. It all fucking works together, you know?
Right.
I'll give Chris some praise here, too, because one of the things that, hooks me into watching is, do they get the little details right? And, I think Tony is very, meticulous about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And this is only 30 seconds of airtime.
Yeah.
But they came back from a break after Chris lost this match.
Yeah.
And he is destroying everything in the backstage.
Having a tantrum.
Just breaking. And, it's like that sells the story.
Yes.
Because if you were like, whatever, there's a fluke, I don't care, you laugh it off or whatever, that diminishes the story.
Yeah.
But you take 30 seconds of the show, and it's very simple. Just have him go tipping over, electrical boxes or whatever backstage.
Throwing chairs against the wall.
It helps.
Yeah, it worked, because then it's like, he really is pissed off. And that's the good thing too, Mark, being the bad guy.
Yeah.
It's like there's no rules.
Yeah.
I can color outside the lines as much as I want. Now, I'm a good baby face.
Yeah.
But it's always so much more fun to be a heel.
Yeah. How could it not
I've
be?
always been better as the bad guy. I've never been world champion as a good guy.
Yeah.
The Ocho every time has been a heel. But once, like you said, that's the art form to it. And then, and the heel is usually leads the match.
Yeah.
Like the guy leads the girl in the dance.
Sure.
The heel leads the good guy.
Why is it?
I don't know. It's just always the way it's been since I came into the business. I think maybe because the heel used to have more experience than the up and coming, good looking baby
Right.
face.
Yeah.
So you could help run the match better.
The old beat up guy?
Yeah, I guess. And now I'm the old beat up guy with the hot young upstarts. But so I think I like to be in that position of controlling the match a little bit more, and you can work together. But the heel just always has more of a say in what's going on.
When you were coming up, were there guys that you looked up to or that you learned from?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's regional guys that never made it out.
Yeah, it's the same with comedy.
Same, right?
The
Guys,
geniuses.
You go and it's like, fucking this guy. Like, why did he never make it?
What's the answer usually?
Timing, probably. You know what I mean? There's just some guys.
Or they got that thing inside of them. They're not going to let them get famous.
Yeah, I mean, you're a guitar player. How many guitar players do you know are like, how the fuck did this guy never make it?
Yeah.
But you're right. The thing inside of him that prevents you from taking a chance to go
or
to the
that
next
one
step.
thing that's just not quite. I don't know. It's a combination of things. Timing's one thing, but some people just don't ever come into their own.
Yeah.
And you got to do that to actually have an honest shot at it.
You do. You have to have a little bit of arrogance, a little bit of fearlessness, a little bit of foolishness to make it. You really do. I mean, think of all of us that I mean, you've made it huge in your career. Just to take that step.
Yeah.
The first night you stepped on stage with 3 minutes of material.
Yeah.
Like I tried stand-up comedy when I sucked. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Thankfully I was good at music and wrestling, so I stuck with that. But like you tried it.
I like that was in the mix.
Well, it was. Yeah. Well, I remember I did a big routine on a golden topping is what they call butter on popcorn in Canada.
Yeah.
Golden topping. I can't remember exactly, but I related it to sex and a golden shower. So maybe that will tell you why my routine didn't do so well that night. But I mean, just to take that chance to make it, it's not not easy to do, right? And maybe some guys weren't able to go for broke.
Right. But what's also hard is if you get the opportunity to keep doing it, is that then you realize like, well, fuck, now I'm in.
Yeah, there's no choice.
And there's no going back to anything.
Yeah.
So you got to ride it out. I think it's one thing if a regional act doesn't quite get it, because I bet you some of those guys are still working, right?
Well, then they did, yeah. I mean, not now because they're probably so old, but because the guys were probably 10, 15 years older than me.
Right.
But they probably worked much longer. They probably had 25-year careers. And then they're probably, driving a taxi, and on Saturday night they're out to go do a match.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if they're okay. I always wonder about those cats. If like they get, if they give it up gracefully.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did you ever see that movie called The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke?
Yeah, sure.
That, I know so many of those guys throughout the years of the guys that were made it big, and then they're working back in the community center after literally playing Madison Square Garden. How does it get to that point? And thankfully, I never had that. I never, from the moment I started wrestling, I think I had a bar gig for the first year and a half. I have never had another job. Of course, I had a million jobs now, but I never had to get a day job since I was probably 21.
Right.
But do you think, Chris, that maybe you also, because you have a kind of spirit of like entrepreneurship, and you've set yourself up with a lot of gigs.
Well, yeah.
And I do think like I was saying that to Mark, like that, you're one of these guys, and I wouldn't call you a survivor in the business. You're still a top star, but you have done what a survivor would do to set themselves up so that they're not in that position. To be like you're still wrestling, and you're wrestling in the highest possible way, taking having long matches, big bumps, all this stuff, but you still have 3 or 4 or 5 things at any given time that you can rely on.
Well, I never wanted to
get the day job.
Or have someone tell me what I have to do. Like, obviously, I have a boss. We all have bosses, but I really work for myself. And I think one of the things I've always been good at is I'm not afraid to take a chance. I left WWE to go to Japan, then went to AEW. I could have, we didn't know what AEW was going to do when it started.
Right.
Like, do you know how many upstart wrestling companies there's been?
Has there been a lot?
Been a lot, but not like major ones. But you hear it all the time. For just the thought of AEW to leave, and for us to be as big as we are right now, to actually be a legit competitor with WWE, no one could have guessed that.
Yeah.
So it took a lot of guts to give it a try. Like, fuck, if this works, my legacy is even bigger. If it doesn't, then tail between the legs, probably go back to WWE or whatever. But I didn't want to do that.
Well, how do people again, but I don't know. Like, how do they treat guys who are getting older at WWE?
Well, I mean, it's weird. Like, back probably in the 90s, there was a company called WCW that became very popular because Hulk Hogan went there, Macho Man Savage, Piper, because Vince got rid of all those guys. Because in his mind, when you hit 40, you were done.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, regional, like Mick Bockwinkel, I think, was the world champion when he was 50 and still awesome.
Yeah.
I'm 52 and I was just one of the world champions, and I'm still, like you said, doing some really great work. So I think WWE had that mindset, but then they kind of got away from it.
Yeah.
Because the adage of age is just the number is so true.
Yeah.
It really is. And to me, people say, well, how much longer are you going to do this? And it's like, I could end tomorrow. I could end 5 years from now.
Sure.
Or who cares? Sting is 63.
Yeah.
And still doing great stuff. So who knows, man? To me, as long as you can still compete at a high level, like I have a high standard for myself. If I went out there and like 2, 3, 4 times in a row, I felt like, oof, like I'm starting to fucking phone this in, I would quit.
That happens with guys too. You see it happen.
You can lose it in a second. Who knows, man, right? So that's why I never thought wrestling would last forever, because it can't. But I can play music until the day I die. I can do a podcast the day I die. I can act until the day I can do a crew, whatever, all these different things that I do.
Yeah.
It's show business, right?
Sure.
So the physical aspect might go away. But in the meantime, I built all these other avenues that it's like, dude, I'll just step. I'm looking at Mick right now. You got this great poster, Give Me Shelter over here. I saw Mick in London this summer. He was 79, almost 80. Yeah. He's still fucking great. Not for for anybody.
Sure, he's Mick Jagger.
He's Mick Jagger.
I saw him. But, you can see that, like, God knows what he has to do to get up into that mind to do that. It's kind of amazing.
It's amazing. But he does it, right, Mark?
He does do it, I've been talking about it. I saw the Stones do their last show here in Florida. Yeah. The last tour,
which at the Hard Rock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And people are like, "Was it great?" I'm like, "No, it was the Stones, though." It's like you're excited to see them, and they put the effort in.
Yeah.
And Mick is carrying the whole goddamn thing. He's overdoing it,
dude, completely.
And it's kind of like you almost feel like saying, like, just take it easy, man. Take a rest.
He gets 2 songs rest per show where Keith sings.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's all you can take of Keith.
And Keith, like you don't even know if he's going to make
croaking it out.
Yeah, you don't know if he's going to make the chord,
dude. He was sitting down for a while when I saw them in Atlanta last November. He just sat down on the chair. Like, listen, dude, I get it. It's fine. But I see Mick Jagger, and to me, it's like I look at pictures of my dad when he was 40.
Yeah.
He looked like an old man.
Yeah.
Sweatsuit, big glasses. That's just how it was back in the 80s. Now I see Mick at 80 and I'm 52. It's like there is no way I'm ever going to stop doing what I'm doing.
Really?
Why would I? If Mick can do it, I want to do it too, and stay in shape and be cool. And like you said, how much he has to do to get into that mindset, but he does it.
Yeah.
And to me, like, that's life. Like, I don't want to be this guy, he's 70 and I'm growing carrots now. And if you want to do that, that's great. I don't want to fucking grow carrots.
Yeah, I don't want to grow carrots, but I might want to not do anything. There's some part of me that's sort of like, how long do I have to keep doing shit?
But you can still do podcasting, or would you say you want to do that?
It's not like I have to train to do stand-up, but it is a matter of, in the same way, it's a matter of relevance and whether or not you're still popular. And we can podcast for as long as we choose to do it. But for some reason, there's still part of my brain, even though I'm my own boss as well, that's sort of like, is there a way to enjoy life without doing this?
Yeah. Well, but my thing though, Mark, is how old were you when you first started doing stand-up?
21.
All right, so you just told me you're 59. So you're looking almost 40 years. Okay, I'm done with it. Now you tell me after those 3 months or 6 months, it's going to creep back like, fuck, man, I want to go back out again. Like, I'll just go to the Improv for one night.
Sure.
I'll take the book in Reseda. Then I'll go to Seattle. Next thing you know, you're all fucking around again.
That's right, but you don't want to be the guy that's sort of like, well, he's still doing it. And that's kind of...
I see that as well, and that's what I was saying about wrestling. People already say that about me. You got to have a thick skin to be in show business because just by the fact I exist, whenever I lose a match, it's the greatest match ever. Whenever I win, it's Jericho holding down the young guys.
Which is so ridiculous because I was mentioning that to him today that, like, it would not be a good win for someone else if you lost all the time.
I was the champion and won a bunch of matches and people were bagging on me for winning. It's like, I'm the champion. How dare you win as the champion so that when someone beats you and becomes the champion, it's a big deal.
Also, Chris lost the title to that giant swing move, which was, I thought, fantastic.
Oh, thanks, yeah.
That that's just like a gimmick that guy does.
Yeah.
I pointed it out to Mark.
The Italian guy?
Yeah, or he's Swiss, but he's got an Italian name.
Yeah.
And Chris tapped out to it, which was hilarious.
We have for years been trying to figure out a way to get out of that move because when he does it, people react. And
the old time he's swinging in the circle
swing.
thing?
Yeah.
But then when he stops, the people come down again.
Yeah.
So I've been working with him since WWE, and we always could never figure out what are we going to do. And finally, it's like, this giant swing. What? Fuck. And then I was like, can I tap out? So I actually had him do it where I was trying to see, like, when you're swinging, can I move my hand around to tap it?
You were tapping the mat
I'm
as
just
you were
hitting
moving.
anything I can as I'm spinning around. But what a great fucking way to go out,
That was amazing. You also took that swing on the top of that cage, which you're fucking nuts for. I would never have. You couldn't have paid me.
I took that giant swing, 40 feet up on top of a cage.
Oh, man.
And the only reason I did it is because Claudio, the guy we're talking about, is the strongest guy. And I knew there is no way in hell he's ever going to even have one wavering second of dropping me.
Yeah.
But as soon as he started giving it to me, and all I'm up there, and all I see is people upside down this far, I took about 6 hours. I'm done. Stop. Now I watch it back on camera. I could have taken it 50 times, but when you're up there, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
It was freaking me out, man.
Well, he's got this uncanny balance when he does it too. But there's no way
we're
could
still
be
on top
in
of a cage
that you would think, he's not.
Yeah, and when you're in it, I'm just going to fall right off the edge, and I'm just freaking out. Stop.
Yeah, but would you have always thought that, or if you were younger, do you think?
I just think just the situation that you're in, being that high up, I don't care how old it is. It wasn't an age thing. It was just a freak out thing.
How often do you feel like you might get hurt? I mean, there looks like it's kind of easy to get hurt.
It's all it takes is one false move and you can get hurt. So that can happen at any point in time.
Yeah.
But there's a few things that I'll see that I do that I'm a little bit nervous about. That was one of them. Getting thrown off the cage in the first one was one of them because it's a pretty far fall.
Yeah.
A couple things. If you see the match I did with Bandito, there's a couple moves he did that I knew were going to hurt. A little bit nervous about. But it's also kind of a little bit of a daredevil thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't not want to do it because it's a little bit scary.
That was what you said while we were watching it. You're like, there has to be a certain level of some kind of masochism to this. Because like
there is.
And it was in that 4-way. Of all the matches we watched, too, that one, and it's funny, I was there and I've watched that pay-per-view since. It wasn't until sitting there watching with him was that I realized of the matches on that pay-per-view, that one was the most physically violent. Like there was
hard hitting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there it got it was really at a heat point in the match, and Mark was like, there's just no way these guys feel good after this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I think a lot of it too is it's just almost like a body callus. You just get used to it.
Sure.
You know, and I used to wrestle 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Every week.
Yeah.
4 times a week. Now it's once a month, once every couple of weeks. So it's almost a little bit harder to wrestle less. When you're wrestling, I couldn't do 4 matches a week schedule now, nor would I ever want to. But when you only wrestle once in a while, you think, oh, it's probably a little bit of an easier schedule. It probably hurts a little bit more because you're not as used to it, you know?
Right, you don't have the kitchen hands.
I guess so, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, have you gotten injured badly?
You know, I've been actually really lucky. The only injury I ever really had, I had a bulging disc, which is fine. But I broke my arm in '94. I had a steel plate put in there. I missed 7 weeks, and that's the only injury I've ever had.
Plate still in there?
Still in there, yeah. I've never missed a match due to injury.
And you were young. That's 94?
94,
wow.
Yeah.
You know, something you mentioned, Chris, that a guy that Mark knows well is Mick Foley.
Oh, okay.
And
great guy.
We used to work with him on the radio, and we did some stuff with him. And one of the crazy things about Mick was, the hardcore legend, as he's called, and he's in all these death matches. But really his biggest earning period of his career was as a guy who pulled a sock out and put it in your mouth. And it was essentially leaning into comedy as a character. And it was something I heard you say on your show once. I think you guys were reviewing like Pile Driver, the album or something.
Yeah.
And you were like, this is part of why I got into wrestling.
Big time.
Was like that it's goofy and silly, and you can't do it all the time, and you can't just be a clown about it. Like bad comedy's bad comedy.
Yes.
And like we were talking about that before too, that if you watch some of this stuff when it's like, if it's acted badly or it just can get embarrassing. But I'm always curious where that comes from. Does it come from like a promoter? Like, is it a Vince, or is it the people on the staff writing saying, we're going to lean into this being funny? Or is it actually just a performer who's turned it up?
Yeah, it's the person.
Right.
Like I said, like I grew up in the 80s watching wrestling, and WWF had that campy side to it, the Slammy Awards and Vince McMahon singing Stand Back and guys fighting back through catering, hitting each other with giant salmon and punch bowl. Like, I always loved that side of wrestling, and I still love it to this day. Now, wrestling has kind of changed where it's much more of a hardcore 5-star match, but yet, like I said, we did that song and dance routine, MJF and I, me and my shadow. That's Busby Berkeley.
Sure.
Like we were arguing, so we were going to meet for dinner and we're going to work this out, and then we'd go into a song and dance routine.
Yeah.
I fucking loved it. It actually even won some kind of award with
it was the New York Times.
New York Times. People hated it. Not all people, but the hardcore. They are killing wrestling. Dude, this is what wrestling had, this element to it. When I was a kid, they got enthralled with it.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is, and this is something like you said, there's nothing worse than bad comedy, and Mark knows this, like there's nothing worse than bad improv.
Yeah.
I did the Groundlings for a year. I learned, don't try and be funny.
Yeah.
If you try and be funny, it's never funny. The best way to do improv is to play it straight.
Sure.
That's how all of my guys will tell you. Inner Circle guys, Jericho Appreciation Society, my rule is play it straight.
Yeah.
I don't care how either serious it is, how outlandish, how goofy it is. If we play it straight, it always fucking works.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the way to do it.
Were you doing the Groundlings while you were wrestling?
I took a break from about 05 to 07.
Okay,
I studied
in that period.
acting. I did improv with the Groundlings.
Did you do that specifically? Like, so when you were back in wrestling, you were knowing that this is stuff you could.
I didn't know if I'd ever come back.
Oh,
I was
really?
just really burned out in wrestling. I didn't know how much farther I could go. And you think about that, 2005, I didn't become Chris Jericho until probably 2008. Like, I'd done a lot of cool stuff.
So how long had you been at it? 2005.
15 years. And I was just burned out. I was done.
That's interesting, though. You were already a funny character.
Yeah.
Like you were. I think the first. I was going to say I think the first time I noticed you, and that's not true. I might have seen you at one of your first ECW matches in Queens. It was like 1996 or something.
Yeah.
I was growing up in
I might have
Queens.
even worked Mick Foley that night.
I think you did.
It was his last show in ECW.
It was.
And one of my first,
At the Rego Park Hall.
And once again, he put me over.
That's right.
I beat him as he's the guy leaving, the big star.
Yeah.
So I'm the young guy, and no one thought I was going to beat him. But when I win and he leaves, now I got a little bit of steam. That's how it works, right?
And so you were babyface there, and then you went to WCW as a babyface.
Yeah.
You kind of fresh-faced, Lionheart, Chris Jericho, and it really started to turn with the losing streak gimmick, which always can help you turn to a heel, right?
Tantrums,
and he turns heel and is going at this guy, Dean Malenko, who is his gimmick is a wrestler's wrestler, and they would call him the man of 1,000 holds.
Yeah.
And Chris comes out, he's the cocky heel, and he has a roll of paper with him. And I remember watching this on TV as it was happening. He says, Dean Malenko, he may be the man of 1,000 holds, but I'm the man of, what was it, 1,004?
1,004.
1,004.
I know 4 more than he does. And now I'm going to read them to you.
Rolls it out. This list rolls down to the ground, and he starts reading them out loud. This is terrible, the announcers. Let's go to break. They go to break. Full commercial set. Back from break, he's still in the ring reading the list of holds, and every like 5th or 7th hold was armbar. It was the same one. He's just repeating it.
The funny thing for that is that we went to commercial break. We're in Chicago, so I'm reading my holds. We go to break. As soon as I know we're in break, I just start insulting Chicago sports teams.
Yeah.
So they're like the Blackhawks
fury.
So when they come back from break, and it's like you got 10 seconds, the Blackhawks suck. The Chicago sucks. 3, 2, 1. The Russian pile driver. So they're really booing. So it looks like for 3 minutes, like he's been doing this for 3 fucking minutes. You know, little showbiz trick.
That's funny.
But that's I don't want to be presumptuous about this, but I do think that got you over in a way that probably then got you hired by WWF when it was time for you to jump. And like, that is the kind of like, so this idea that, and it goes back to something you said right when we started talking, was that it's all about the character.
Yes.
The character.
Yeah. Well, another thing about wrestling too is it's really a lot of similarities between WWE and SNL, Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
That's true.
If you look at it, Lorne has created this entire pop culture phenomenon that changed the course of history in a lot of ways. Vince did the same with the WWF. But they're both based on talent and making stars.
Yeah.
Then those stars become big stars, and then they leave. And now he has to build new stars. So sometimes you get a shitty season of SNL because there's just nothing there. Same in WWE. Sometimes they're trying to build these guys like this guy just doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Then The Rock comes, or Steve Austin comes, or Adam Sandler comes out, and suddenly you got a guy who's hot. Then the show is hot.
Yeah, right.
And then the guy leaves, and you
brings
got to
new life to it.
Yeah. So, but that's always the secret, like you were saying. Who's the next hot guy? And you never know. Like the Acclaimed, we never thought the Acclaimed. Well, we never. I'm not saying we didn't think it, but the fact they got as big, they're a tag team that does a little rap act when they come out. They're great, and they're so popular.
Yeah.
You never would have guessed it if you just saw them 2 years ago.
Right.
Oh, they're a decent little team, whatever. And now they're like one of the biggest acts on our show.
Is there some sort of scouting apparatus to wrestling? I mean, like it seems like with show business, everyone kind of can see people developing.
Yes, and they call them indies, independent companies, and pre-pandemic and then now post-pandemic, they're finally getting back to where you'll see a lot like that PWG. There's still dozens of great wrestlers that aren't signed to WWE or AEW. Mm-hmm. And so then you get the word out about them, like, oh, the guy like Michael Oku I worked, or Speedball Mike Bailey, you hear about this guy. So there's all these names that you hear, and then sooner or later they'll get to the point, same with me, oh, who's this Lionheart Chris Jericho? He's really popular in Mexico. We'll keep an eye on him. Mm. And
it's interesting because like it seems like there's a never-ending appetite for it. Yeah. In terms of like folding these guys into one of the either of the big franchises, but like if they can't cut it, they just won't cut it.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
You're right.
They just go away.
And that's exactly the truth. And you get that with any time. I mean, do we see it with studios putting a guy in a leading role part? It just doesn't work, and you're gone right away. Bands, bands, they just go through bands. If you don't get that hit right out of the gate, you could be done. Yeah. It's just, at wrestling, you get a little bit more time, but if you get put in that top position and you don't draw, people don't watch your matches. Like TV ratings are so important.
Yeah.
I read the minute by minute TV ratings every week
Of your show?
of my show to see how did I do, but how did this guy do? Who's drawing every
Really?
week? Yeah, and you can kind of see this pattern whenever he's on.
Yeah.
The ratings go up.
Really?
Swerve Strickland is one of those guys. He's not
That's
a ratings
interesting.
bonanza, but every time he's on, the ratings go up.
And what do do you have a theory about that?
The connection.
That's right. It's
They're
just
connected.
if with that guy, I would say is his presence. If
Connected.
you look at him on the
Yeah.
screen, Jade Cargill is similar in that if you see her on your screen, you think, well, that's a
He's a
interesting
star.
person.
Yeah, I want to see what this person is doing. So that matters. And if you don't draw, my boss Tony Khan is a numbers fanatic. If you are put in a position and your ratings go down, you won't be put in that position anymore. So that's part of it. Is you have to connect. People have to watch you when you're on screen. If not, you won't be on screen in that position, or maybe you won't be on the main show. You get put to the next show.
Huh.
So it's all kind of there's levels to that too.
I think also the ratings it's super important these days because the whole business is being
These
driven by
television
these
rights.
TV deals. Yeah. Like, back in the day when I was a kid, it was like they were just trying to get you to go to the house show matches. They literally, WWF paid for their television in your local markets like it was an infomercial, basically, because they knew the money was in getting you out to the match. Like, I lived in Albany, New York when I was a kid, and that was where we would go. We watched wrestling every week to know what's going to be at the match when we go to see it. That is not it anymore. If anything, WWE for a while was not doing any of those type of shows because it was a money drain. You're
losing money. Yeah,
they could just do these TV, get $1 billion in a TV deal from USA Network and
but
Fox.
that's what it is done. That's what type of money is at stake.
Yeah.
So the ratings are everything.
Wow, because when I was a kid, I was just like I was telling you before, they would have the wrestling in Albuquerque, New Mexico on Sundays, like a Tingley Coliseum.
Yeah.
I'd see the
I've
same
been there.
dude. Yeah.
Is that where you grew up, Albuquerque?
Yeah. And I just remember, I didn't watch the matches, but I just remember thinking, like, this is happening right now.
Yeah.
These guys are down there doing that.
Yeah.
And they were.
That was the big thing. Like I said, I've been in Albuquerque many times to wrestle because WWE, that was the circuit. You go on the road, and so you do your TV on Monday, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're in Albuquerque, and then you go to Tempe, Arizona, then you end up in Phoenix. But now it's all about that TV.
Yeah.
It's all that matters.
No one's going anywhere.
Yeah, no one's going anywhere.
I do think it's interesting that I heard your recent podcast with Jeff Jarrett, and he was saying that there's a focus on doing, we'll call them house shows for lack of whatever they could call, but into markets where the TV is not going to go. And I think that's probably a really smart thing.
We're not going to do a live TV show.
Yeah.
We have TV in the market, but we're not going to go to Poughkeepsie and do TV.
Right. I think that's smart.
Or just to do a live show to bring people out.
But that's nothing too. The younger guys need the reps.
the reps, yeah.
You got it. You know this as a performer.
Yeah.
The only way you get better is by keep doing it.
I thought another amazing thing on that Jeff Jarrett show was, I was talking to you before about how there's a kind of disreputable quality to the history of wrestling, mostly because of its carny roots and everything. And it was even as late as what that incident he was talking about with you was 1999. And it didn't occur to me until he said it on your show that WWE went public 2 days later after he had an incident. This wrestler had an incident where he was leaving the company, but he had a match booked, so he's not under contract, and he's essentially like, if you want me to stay and have this match and lose, I want this much money, right? And he had the check cut from the arena because the fear of like this company might screw me and
write a bad check or something.
Check. Like this is a company that's literally in 2 days they're gonna go on the path to be worth billions of dollars with the B, and that was still the mentality.
Old school wrestling.
Yes,
yeah,
right.
Totally.
Well, yeah, it's like Chuck Berry wanted to be paid in cash.
That's right. Before the show.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Give me the cash and give me the Cadillac.
I mean, you've also probably dealt with your fair share of that, of like a club that you wasn't going to
Oh,
pay.
yeah, man. You just like, there were places like in Seattle, that dude, you really needed to get a guarantee of money. I remember when I went to Vancouver for that second year at that comedy festival, because that guy got a reputation for screwing people out of money. And I'm like, I'm not going to go unless you wire me the money up front.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't do it. And I literally told my agent, I didn't give a fuck. Yeah. I said, I'm not going. I'm not going to get on the plane. And it came down to this wire of like, I'm on my way to the airport. And I said, is it done yet? And he's like, no. And I'm like, I'm not going to get on the plane. I swear to God, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And they did it.
What was
you
also-
had to sometimes, right?
That you had some weird shit where it was like Barry Katz would get you guys plane tickets.
Oh, that was different. That was I don't know what kind of racket that was. That was
Sounds totally shady. Yeah, like a criminal thing.
No, it was a guy that was sort of like, it was some sort of pool of frequent flyer miles that he was drawing from that weren't mine or anybody else's. I'm not sure how it worked, but you'd get these plane tickets, but you couldn't change them at the airport.
Yeah.
Because, they weren't attached to your name or something. Because I remember one time I tried to change one and it was like, it was just shy of being arrested.
Yeah.
When I was in ECW, which was it was kind of an underground promotion, but it had a lot of steam to it. And I was in Philly and I slept through my flight, so I called the airline to change the ticket. And they said, "Oh, sure, you can change it, sir. Mr. Irvin, we're very sorry about your loss." And I said, "My loss?" They said, "Yeah, you're lost." I'm like, "Okay, your brother-in-law." They bought me a bereavement fare ticket. Now, bereavement fare means when somebody dies and you need to fly home quickly, you get a bereavement fare.
Yeah.
So the promoter, Paul Heyman, was using bereavement fares and just saying, "Yes, Chris Irvin's brother-in-law died. He needs to get to Philadelphia by tomorrow."
Yeah.
So I was like, "A bereavement fare?" And he's like, "Yes." And then he pulls out a pad of paper. He goes, "If they ask you for proof, you can show them this note from the coroner." And he's like, he's got like a coroner pad. Dr. Jaime P. Schwartz or whatever the fuck it was. So the bereavement fairs was a good one.
I can't remember who you were saying it was. It was somebody that was on this was again that show I was listening to you doing about the pile driver video.
Yeah.
And you said that somebody was on the set, or I think it was made Girls Just Want to Have Fun. And it was Captain Lou, that's who it was, who was like still selling watches out of a suitcase or something.
In the back,
And it's like, again, they were breaking into national MTV rock and wrestling, and it's like the carny spirit does not go away.
Never dies, exactly.
It is there.
Sure. I mean, but that's also what's great about it in some ways.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, there's no union for wrestling.
Is that good or bad?
It's probably bad, but there'll never be one.
Yeah.
The only way there will ever be a union in wrestling is if the network says, "Hey, you guys need to be part of SAG," or whatever it is.
Well, we were talking about how it could possibly that there's an argument being made by some people to make it an Olympic sport.
That I'm one of the big arguers for that.
Yeah.
I think you could totally have a
Why
great
not?
Olympic sport because it's as much of a routine as figure skating is.
Yeah.
That's all choreographed. And why couldn't you take the two best Canadian wrestlers and the two best American wrestlers, and it's like there's judges and they award your 3-minute routine, which is the match you have.
Yeah.
And they give you a score.
And I was explaining to Mark like the very rudimentary nature of like what do you watch for in the structure of a match, and you could easily create that as part of a scoring system. It's
Sure,
like
you
what's
could.
their shine, what's the heat, where's
Yes.
the comeback, and that's.
But
that
the
could
thing
do
was
it.
is that like the risk of it, like as exciting as the possibility sounds, just for legitimacy, is that if you don't bring the announcers with you to the Olympics, it's half the fucking game.
That's
Well,
true.
they have announcers in Olympics,
yeah,
so
I know,
you could
but you
do
got
it.
to have the wrestling guys.
Well, you would have them. It's
All
just
right.
like when you watch the figure skating, they got freaking, Scott
Hamilton.
Hamilton, he's a guy, right?
Yeah. So you could have Excalibur.
You could
there
totally
doing
do it, man. And then you would.
But everything else is so snobby. It'd be hilarious.
He's so great. But it's just like the same thing when you have like I mentioned, like rhythmic gymnastics. I mean, how preposterous
Yeah, but
is
no
that?
one's talking about yam sacks.
Oh, that was the Taz line. Yeah. Yam bag.
Yam bag.
Yeah.
That was my
in-
match. And that was from when
It was, I think, the Young
girls-
Bucks took a shot in the balls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the guy in the white pants.
Yes. Yeah. It was one of the Young Bucks. But I very
Yam
much enjoy
bags.
you on commentary, Chris, and I also it ties into something with Mark here because one of the things I love is that you just to flat out call people stupid idiots.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
you're look at this dumb idiot. Like
Yeah.
I love that's
the
just a
double
great-
negative, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was recently I have my workstation set up. I was doing some work, and I have a thing set up on a tweet deck so that if there's Marc Maron, I can follow along. That
Make
way.
sure he's not getting in trouble.
Yeah.
Basically. And all of a sudden one night I see people going like, I think that's Marc Maron. Is it Marc Maron? Is that Marc Maron? And I'm like, what are they talking about? And I look and they're watching The Masked Singer and they're guessing that somebody is Marc Maron. And I'm like, who could sound like Mark? It's interesting. So I go and seek it out. What are they watching? I find the clip, and it's this giant purple monster. and the song is that song "Shut Up and Dance with Me," and it got maybe 10 seconds into the song, I guess however long it takes to get to the shut up and dance with me part, and you shut up and I'm like, oh, it's Chris Jericho. I've heard him say it in that tone 1,000 times. Yeah, it's like to the crowd, to an opponent, to the shut up, you idiot.
It was you?
Yeah. I just did that actually this past season, just a couple weeks ago. It was on. Yeah.
And what's this other thing you're doing? You're doing Name That Tune?
Name That Tune. I did that. They call me for all that shit now, so it's fun.
Okay.
It's fun to do. I like like the Masked Singer thing.
Yeah.
Was so preposterous.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest thing in the world, but it's like, oh, that sounds like it could be fun. I'll give it a try, and it was great. Same with Name That Tune. I mean, dude, I was so into it. It's like I don't want to give anything away, but I was so into this show, this stupid Name That Tune. You're just like, oh, I know it.
Yeah.
It was fun. I mean, that sort of stuff is fun for me.
That's great.
And then you've got this cruise coming up too, right?
The Chris Jericho's Rockin' Wrestling Rager at Sea. It's our 4th one.
It's crazy. Like I heard you doing this.
You do matches and music?
On the
like
middle of the ocean.
A lot of them. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. Like I've heard about it years ago, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." They do a cruise, like it'd be like the Disney cruise or something. Yeah. It's like you keep scrolling on the website, like there's 100 people involved. In this
My band did the Kiss cruise in 2015. And as soon as we docked, I called my manager. I was like, dude, we can do this. We can do a cruise with wrestling and rock and roll.
Sure.
And just my goal is just barrage people with activities. There's so much shit going on this thing that they'll want to come back the next year and the next year after that. Comedians, got a lot of comedians on it every year. Just make it a total entertainment.
Yeah. For how long are you out there?
It's 4 days.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
And wait, you leave from where?
Miami. And this year's to Great Stirrup Cay, which is a private island. Sometimes it's Bahamas, sometimes it's Cozumel, just whatever. It's a great time. It's a blast. So what made you decide to start learning a little bit more about wrestling, Mark?
Well, Brendan's sort of hopping on this idea that I want to sort of enjoy my life more.
Yeah.
And I don't have enough...
diversions to hobbies.
Yeah, hobbies, and I don't always know what's a good time.
Well, we were trying to do something too, because we thought it would be like good podcast material if he got into something that he had no interest in, right? And it was like we started like trying to get him to watch like the Marvel movies. And,
I didn't do it.
Yeah, and that was the thing. And then the thing was like for me, I didn't give a shit, so I was like, okay, then don't do it. I'm not going to force you to do this.
Yeah.
And it was literally at that Full Gear, like I was just having a blast, and I was like, Mark should be here. Like, we should be doing this together. Like, and I'm a lifelong fan, so I can actually bring some passion to it and convince him like this is a good hang. Like we can enjoy this, you know.
So, but it's interesting too, though, because all that time you're doing Glow, you didn't want to.
Well, I mean, I took that, I got that part, and I knew what my position was, and I thought that to some degree it would serve me better if I didn't.
Gotcha.
That this guy didn't plan on being a wrestling director.
Which
he
is
saw
kind
himself,
of the story,
he saw himself as a director.
Yeah.
And then sort of took he grew to love them, and he grew to sort of get involved with it. But still, throughout that series, you don't get the feeling he knows about wrestling. Mm-hmm. It's the other kid. It's Chris Lowell.
Yeah.
He seemed
the
to
rich
know.
kid. Yeah.
Yeah. He was the fan, so it didn't compel me. And Brendan's been booking wrestlers on one show or another that we've had for years. I mean, we did bits with Mick Foley when we were on radio, when I was on radio and he was producing me on radio. And then I interviewed Colt Cabana, years ago. I interviewed Punk.
Yeah.
I interviewed his wife. What's her name?
AJ.
AJ. Yeah. So I've talked to all of them, but I don't think I really got, what it means to watch it or enjoy it until today. Oddly.
Really?
Yeah. Because he's real into it, but maybe it's something to do with where I'm at in my life or whatever. But I was just able to watch it today with him saying like it's about the story, it's about all these things, and I sensed it, I got it.
When you come at it with that idea, it'll really open up to you. It's like Walking Dead. It's not a show about zombies.
Yeah.
It's a show about society, about relationships, and
sure.
Zombies are the background. Wrestling's almost the same. It's not about the body slam. Sure, that's a part of it, but it's the storyline that matters. It's all that matters.
And it's also just not being condescending, right? So like that, just let it happen. I mean, if you're going to bring all that baggage to it, like this is stupid.
But there's such a stigma about wrestling for that shit is fake. Every single movie.
No, I get it, but like it seems like that stigma is like not. as prevalent anymore. Like it seems like there's been so much pushback over the years against people saying it's fake. It's like, of course it is, but so what?
Right.
That was ultimately it.
It's a live stunt show. It's a modern day Shakespearean play.
Right.
It really is, and that's, if you look at it that way, you can really appreciate it so much more.
Well, it's great talking to you, man.
Yeah, great talking to you, man.
I'll see you tomorrow.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited to see what you think.
Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more of my podcast, subscribe to WTF with Marc Maron. It's free wherever you get your podcasts, or go to WTFpod.com.